I want to jump straight in because am I right in thinking you have just done a race which includes escape from prison?
I'm an escaped convict right now.
Catch me. You can't leave us hanging with that. Could you tell us a bit more about that, and then we'll trace the story back and figure out how this all started.
Okay, yeah. So 2 weeks ago, I took part in a race called Escape from Alcatraz. Don't know if you've heard of Alcatraz. It's a tiny little island in the middle of San Francisco Bay. They've made a few films out there. The Rock with Sean Connery, Escape from Alcatraz with Clint Eastwood, and the idea is that they take 1,600 of us out on a boat to Alcatraz, and then they drop anchor just at the side of Alcatraz, and off we go. Jump off the side of the boat, swim to shore, a 1.5 mile swim. Then it's a triathlon, so we're onto the bikes. Cycle around San Francisco for 18 miles, jump off the bikes, and then off we go on the run. And it's a fabulous run into Golden Gate Park, under the bridge. We all know what the bridge looks like, and then back down the finish chute to complete the race. And it was a fantastic event. No, they didn't catch me. I'm still a free man, a fugitive, but here I am chatting to you guys now, and it's great to be here.
I would love to hear how this all started, because it's not everybody says, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to escape from Alcatraz. And I know this isn't the first extreme one that you've done. We're going to come on and talk in a bit about your biggest challenge yet, by the sounds of it, with the thing that's coming up that you're doing for Mercy. So we're really, really, really looking forward to chatting that through and hearing why you're going to be doing that. But if you could just chart the story back a bit, when did you get into this, and how did you get into it, and what was the instigator?
I've always enjoyed running, not particularly seriously, but through my 20s, 30s, 40s, like to jog around the park to try to keep in shape. But life does get a little bit in the way, the business of life, and I did find myself getting a little bit unfit, a bit overweight. And I do remember one Christmas going back to Leeds to see the family, and one of our lovely aunties decided to just join into the conversation by saying, "Oh, Martyn's fat now, isn't he? He's really overweight now." Because I was in the room, I'm hearing everything, and I thought, well, you know what? She's right. I've put a few pounds on, and it was the spur that I needed. You know, God speaks to us in many different ways, and sometimes it's through an elderly aunt who says, "You know what? You just need to look after yourself a little bit more." So that was a bit of a spur just to do a little bit more exercise, and I really found that as I got into it, I really enjoyed it, and I found that the peace that you get while going out running is fabulous, you know. And soon I realized that at that time that I was able to find that God was speaking to me through the exercise that I was getting, encountering God in all sorts of different ways through going out running, having that peace of mind that you get through that, and I no doubt come back to home and shared a few things with Helen about the experiences and what I felt perhaps God might have been saying at that time, and that then developed into bigger things. So from going out and trying to get a little bit fitter, I turned it into doing a marathon, and then from that I decided, you know what, I've got a bicycle in the garage that I never use. Why don't I ever go a bit of cycling? I've always fancied learning how to swim properly, so I got some lessons and learned how to swim, and suddenly a few things, the components were there to be able to enter a triathlon. I've seen a few clips on YouTube about Ironman, the long distance Ironman course, and I thought, you know what, I really fancy having a go at one of those. And the Ironman races are fabulous. They really are. They're so long. But you can take your time. It's a day of eating while taking exercise, really. You've got a 2.4 mile swim. You've got a 112 mile bike. And then to top it off, you finish off with a marathon. So it's a long course. It's a long day out. But you meet some great people. And I do remember the first one that I did 10 years ago. Interrupt me if you need to. If you want to ask questions,
No,
interrupt me.
please, yeah, please keep going.
So the first Ironman I did just over 10 years ago in Wales. I remember standing on the beach there with, I don't know, 2,000 other people waiting for the start. I remember saying just a little prayer and saying, right, God, it's me and you today, because I'm not going to do it without you, that's for sure. Didn't know really what to expect. And then the hooter goes off and 2,000 of us run into the sea. And off we go, and it's a bit like being in a washing machine. Yeah, you've got arms and legs everywhere, and the foam of the water. And I don't know, an hour and 20 minutes later, you're getting out of the sea, and you're onto the bike. I was I was so new into the sport. I really didn't know what to expect, whether I was going to finish the race at all, or just become so exhausted that it was going to be get halfway through the bike, or something mechanical happen on the bike. You just got no idea really. So what I do remember is having words of scripture taped to my water bottles, just to encourage me along the way. Just to be able to just refer back to that. So every 20 minutes you get a quick sip of juice, just a little bit of encouragement with a word of scripture there, and things like that just help you just carry on. And then after the bike, out onto the run, and of course Helen was there. My son Max was there at the time as well, just cheering us on, and it was a great time, a great moment, and a real blessing for us all as a family to be able to cross that finish line and then claim, oh wow, I've done it, yeah, job done. So yeah, God has been good. He's given me an ability to be able to do these things. I love it. I enjoy it. I enjoy the time while I'm training. I enjoy those moments where I might be swimming in the sea, and you get to really experience God's creation. Take this morning. This morning I was out swimming, and 2 feet underneath me, all of a sudden, an eel. Now that's enough to make you squirm. But there you go, God's creation. You know what? Let's embrace it. It's an eel just there. Not everybody saw an eel at 7 o'clock this morning, but I did.
That's amazing,
Hi,
Martyn.
How are you doing?
I'm all right. I'm just feeding the troops.
Look at this, Martyn.
What you got there? What is it? Fish and chips.
Oh, look at that.
That's not bad, is it? And where are they from?
Mother Hubbard's.
Mother Hubbard's. They look delicious.
This feels like such a privilege, Martyn, to be able to listen to you talk about doing things that I'm never ever going to do.
Don't say never. Don't say you never.
It would be a story of transformation if ever I got into this kind of stuff. But I would really love to know what. One of the things I'd love for you to talk us through is how doing this stuff has helped your mental health, because I know. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.
Yeah, obviously we've heard from people today. I mean, Josh was just talking about it in terms of the direct relationship there is between our physical health and what's going on with our body and our mental health. It sounds like, I'm assuming that actually this has been a helpful thing for you. I'd love for you to talk about the difference it's made and why you find it helpful. So what it is about the athletics, about the extreme sports that actually you know it's doing your mind good, and if you're, as much as you feel comfortable talking about a bit of a before and after. So before this was a feature in your life, what was your mental health like? How did if it wasn't great, what did that look like? You obviously don't have to go into details, so you're comfortable. And then since you've discovered this, and since you've been able to find something that's helping you, what difference it's made, and how what your life is like now. Yeah,
sure. So that's a great question. Now, the things going into this, say 10 years ago, or maybe just before that, what, life was ticking along quite nicely. I can't say that I had any major situations that was going to cause me mental problems or cause to have serious anxieties. However, in the last 10 years, since I've been doing these sports, things have come along that have really thrown the spanner in the works, you might say. Things like losing family members. My dad died a few years ago. Most of us have been through situations like that. Not easy to deal with. We had very serious business issues that we had to deal with. That was all coming at the same time. And yeah, these things really can knock you sideways. So having the faith, being able to draw on that faith, and taking regular exercise, being determined to do that, and not allowing what can happen is you can allow these things to come into your life and totally derail everything. And I think the discipline of doing things like this don't give you that the ability to do that. I don't want to use the word freedom, but they don't give you the opportunity to say, you know what, I'm having a day off today, because a day off will give you the excuse to have a week off. I wasn't going to allow myself that opportunity. And what that did was it kept me focused, it kept me disciplined, and it meant that I was able to keep going while a lot of things around me weren't going well at all. And gradually, what that does is if you see a lot of things going wrong in your life, but you see something that's going right in your life, there is something tangible there that you can hang on to. And couple that with the fact that you genuinely believe that you've been given this gift by God to be able to do this. It's something just to hold on to. And we know that taking exercise releases endorphins. It makes you feel better. We know that. But there's something tangible about saying, you know what? God gave me this gift. I'm not going to let it go just because this is happening or that is happening. I'm going to keep doing this. I've been given it. I've got responsibility to keep doing this. And so there is a determination, and it's a God-given determination that, you know, I'm not going to give into this. I'm not going to give into anxiety. I'm going to push on through this, and gradually, and it doesn't happen, or it didn't happen with me immediately. It was something that I had to work through for a good few years, certainly with things like the business that were a struggle for maybe 5 years. We had to deal with that, but gradually things turned around there. And, you know, we're in a much better place with that. But I think the discipline of your faith and taking regular exercise really were a great channel for me to be able to stay, you know what, I'm staying on this path. And it's whatever this is going to throw at me, it's not going to beat me. I'm going to keep going. And yeah, the faith and the exercise together really helps me to go through some pretty dark times, to be fair. You know, we were staring at some pretty dark things at the time, and thankfully, God brought us through those things.
Martyn, thank you so much for sharing that and for giving us that insight. One of the things that you mentioned was losing your dad.
Yeah.
So I wonder if I could just ask you a question about that, and again, just as much as you feel
sure.
answering. But that. In our life's milestones, losing a father and losing a parent is huge. It's not just the loss of the individual. There's the loss of the generation. It's almost like the generation then hands on to you because you lost your father figure. I wonder if you could just talk us through what that was like for you. And maybe, again, as much as you feel comfortable, what your relationship with your father was like. Because one of the themes that's come through quite a bit today is we have been talking about generational patterns. We've been talking about the things that we learn from our parents and the things that, and it sounds like there is in you that kind of, one of the things that struck me as you've been talking is that determination to go, I'm not going to let this beat me. That comes from somewhere, and I'd love to I wonder whether there's any connection between that and your father, whether it was either trying to do things differently or that was modeled in him.
I'm more than happy to share with you. I'm one of the fortunate ones. I had two great parents. My mum's still here, but yeah, mum and dad, great people, loved me, my brother, and my sister so much, and we had a wonderful childhood. And Dad was one of those parents who would build us a go-kart, and he'd be testing it out himself at 10 o'clock at night, going down the street, and I'll build us a sledge, and he'd be out there doing that with us. So we had some great fun as kids, and a wonderful childhood, great memories. And yeah, it's quite possible that kind of determination did come from my dad, seeing him doing lots of work around the house, building extensions and such like, putting his hand to things. Certainly was a great leader, and somebody that I certainly did look up to, and still do look back with great joy at what he did for me in my life. But coming towards the end of his life, Dad had a stroke, and he was left, the last 2 years of his life, he was left in a really bad way, barely able to talk. And it was a really hard time for us as a family to see him like that, and to see somebody who was so strong and so active all his life to be in such a difficult condition. And then when finally he was admitted into hospital for the last few weeks of his life, that was a very difficult time. He was in Wakefield. We were on the Isle of Man. Of course, we went over there and spent some time there. And it was hard to see him in hospital, barely able to talk. But I do remember so clearly having a conversation with him saying, Dad, if there's anything at all that you feel that's holding over us, I totally forgive you of anything that you may have done or said. And I don't even remember, I can't honestly remember there being anything, but I wanted to make sure that he knew that I loved him, because he was a great dad. Possibly one of the most difficult things is saying goodbye. I had a fantastic opportunity to put my arms around him and say goodbye, but that was hard.
Yeah.
So hard, because I knew that it was going to be the last time I'd see my dad. And that's the hardest conversation I think I've ever had with anybody. But it was good. It's a privilege, though. It's a privilege to be able to do that, and to know that, you know what, I had total peace over that conversation, over how my relationship with my dad ended, because I go back to I'm one of the fortunate ones. Dad was great. I'm so blessed to be able to say that.
Yeah, and he was he a support for you? And because it sounds like he was, like the way that you talk about it.
He was, yeah. So going back to the Ironman Wales, so that's what, 10, 11 years ago. Dad was still in good health at that point. And he wrote an article in the local newspaper. So it must have filled him with so much joy to see his son doing these things. So absolutely, it was a great support. And wanted to, as I was talking to my mum the other day, and she said, "Oh, your dad would have been so proud." And that's what Dad was like. He would have been cheering on from the sidelines. He would have been there. He would have gone over to America with us and cheered us on if he could have been there. That's what it was like. Yeah.
So what's it been like? Because one of the painful, there's so much pain that comes with a parent dying. I thankfully haven't had to experience that myself, but I can completely imagine that there's so much loss. But one of the things that it sounds like you've lost and had to navigate is that support structure. Somebody that is your go-to person for when you're doing events, when you're pushing yourself, that you've got them in mind. How have you found things since his passing, and have you had to replace that support structure? Like, have you had to look out for someone that can be somebody else that you default to or you go to?
Well, I'm fortunate. I do have Helen, obviously my wife, who has always been a great support, and she comes with me to almost every race if she can. And yeah, we are blessed. I've got 2 great kids as well. We are a close-knit family. I don't mind saying it. You know, we are fortunate in that. So just going over to San Francisco just now, Max, our son, came over with me, and we had a blast. We had a great time. You know, it did feel a little bit like a lad's road trip out there to America. It was great. We had a blast, and a little bit like passing the baton on, I guess, from my dad to me to my son. It was a great time. So in terms of support, yeah, I've got some good friends around me, some good Christian guys. I've got obviously, again, going back to talking about Helen, really, she's the one that I would defer to for support and for advice. But I think, yeah, just touching back to the process of losing a parent and such like, I think the problem that I had was that I had 2 years to prepare for dad dying. I say problem. I had 2 years to prepare for dad dying. So when he died, I actually thought that I was fully ready for this. And so the death happened, the funeral happened, and I thought, okay, I'm okay. And it must have been 6 months later when it just slammed me, and I was in the gym by myself in the gym, and I just couldn't do anything. It just floored me. Grief just poured out of me. And, you know, and we all behave differently in those situations. We all react differently. There's no script to that kind of thing. But it was just grief pouring out of me. But, you know, you might think you're all right, but there's something, it needs to come out of you at some point.
And can you talk to us a little bit more about what that experience was like when you say the grief poured out of you? You're completely right. Everyone's journey is different. But for you, how did that grief manifest? How was it kind of coming out of you?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't recognize it. I thought I was okay. Just trying to do what I was doing. You got to remember at the time as well, we had a business that was really struggling. Seriously struggling. So I felt pressure coming at me from various angles. We have serious issues with this that doesn't look like it's going to get any better. I've lost my dad and life isn't great. And I just remember going into the gym thinking, you know what, I'm going to have an hour. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but I've got a Zwift set up. It's an indoor bike. When the weather's bad, I can go in the gym, put the bike on it. It's a bit like gaming, but with fitness. So you've got this TV in front of you, and you've got a screen where you can cycle with 1,000 other people and pretend that you're doing the Tour de France or something like that. And it's great. It's a great way to keep fit. And I just started out, and 5 minutes into it, just, you know what, this just is not going to happen. What is wrong with me? And I just remember literally climbing off the bike on the floor on my knees and crying, and it just all came out of me in that moment. And you know, it was the right thing to do. It was the right time. But you know, I think Helen was just on her way home from work, and you know, she came home, and it was a turning point. Things turned from that moment. I'd emptied all the grief out, and you can see certain strategic points in your life where things start to change, start to turn, and that was one of those moments where, okay, yeah, we're back on it now, and yeah, that's about as much as I can really say about that, to be fair.
Yeah, and one of the things you mentioned a few times is the role that Helen's played.
Yeah,
we had a question earlier on with one of the other interviews, which was, what can women, specifically wives, do to help men with their mental health? It sounds like Helen's been a great support to you. So maybe could you draw upon some of the things that she's done that's just been really helpful and it's been a support for you?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, I mean, she is a great listener. She, you know, when you need to talk, literally, it's a case of, okay, let's go into another room, let's get some quiet, and let's talk things out. And she is really, really good at that. Just listening, and you know, not necessarily offering advice, but just allowing me space to speak, and then okay, let's bring this to prayer. Of course, you don't need me to tell you what Helen's role is within Mercy. So she does have a great skill set in that regard. So she is a good person to turn to for things like that. And of course, we have done Keys to Freedom together with a group of, I think it was about 8 of us. So we went through that, and Helen led us through it. That was a great opportunity just to be able to, we know what Keys is, just to be able to go through that process, make sure that there's nothing there that needs to be, if there is anything there, bring it out, let's get it out, let's deal with it, let's not hold any baggage. So things like that have really helped along the way. I've been a great process. By no means am I the finished article. By no means I've got a long way to go. A long way to go. But the journey, we're on that journey, and it's going in the right direction.
Yeah. I would, Paul, do you have any questions?
An observation and a question really about why did you so readily and easily think pick extreme eventing as opposed to any of the other things that it could have been, but you went like all in?
I did. You're quite right. I do think it was it was God breathed in terms of the. I do, without blowing my own trumpet, I have a determination to see things through. If I'm starting something, I'm going to make sure I do everything I can through God's gifts to see that things through, to see that through. So I could. You got Iron Man here, you got business here, and they were both very, very difficult things to do, to manage. And I was absolutely determined that a business that I knew God was in wasn't going to fail. Likewise, with the Iron Man, it seems a ridiculous challenge to do, but I knew that God was in it. So in that regard, even though it's hard, when you know God's in it, it's not that hard. It's just a matter of do the training and do it, get on with it. Yeah, it's a challenge, and nobody's going to dress it up as not being hard. It should be hard, but it's very, very doable, and it's a real blessing to be able to do those things. It's you're mixing with some wonderful people, and at the end of the day, I actually enjoy it as well. It's good fun. It is good fun. I enjoy swimming. I enjoy cycling. If I didn't enjoy it, let's be honest, I'd probably said, you know what, I've done a few of these things. Let's stop now. I actually do enjoy it. They're good fun.
I think to Paul the Apostle saying first the natural, then the spiritual, and it's almost as though you purposely chose endurance. You chose endurance as your thing. On purpose in advance. Rob was talking earlier, wasn't it, about the law before? Yeah. About doing something before you actually needed it.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this. Point. And it taught you endurance, and you have that in your toolkit. But then you were able to endure and persevere through all of those challenges that then came. I mean, it's just absolutely amazing. It's really inspiring, Martyn.
No, thank you. Yeah, no, actually, you put it into words there far better than I did. That's a good way of putting it. Absolutely agree.
I think you've been doing a great job. How you put it.
And so, Martyn, you've got your biggest challenge yet coming up. Please tell us about that, because you're doing it all for Mercy.
We are, yeah. This is great. Yeah. So Patagon Man, we're so excited about this race. So back in, I've tried to enter this race a number of times. It's one of those things that is very difficult race to actually get a slot for. There are 300 places for it, and it's massively oversubscribed. So basically, I was sent an email from them back in January saying, right, the next 7 days, you've got an opportunity to put your name down if you want to try to do it this year. And I don't know how many people put their names down. All I know is it's massively oversubscribed. Well into the thousands of people who want to do this race, and 300 people have drawn out the hat. Well, my name was drawn, and sure enough, I think I had about 3 or 4 days to decide, do we do this or not? And of course, there's, it's such a commitment. It's such a long way to go. It's down at the bottom of Chile. And so I said, well, you know what, if we're going to do this, it can't just be about doing a race. There has to be a bigger purpose behind this. So that's when we got in touch with Ariana and said, you know what, we want to do this, but it's got to be bigger than just doing a swim, bike, run. Let's do it for Mercy. And let's get some publicity behind it. Let's make sure we raise more awareness for Mercy, for men's mental health, and obviously do this race. Well, the race is fantastic. It's an Ironman distance race, with a difference. This time they take us out on a boat at the crack of dawn. 2.5 miles out into one of the fjords down there, and we jump off the back of this boat into icy cold waters, obviously with a wetsuit. It's something like around about 8 or 9 degrees is the water temperature at that time of year. Swimming back to shore, then onto the bikes, and this is where the support team comes in. This is where Helen and Max will really help me out here, because they're my support team. They will be meeting me something like every 20 miles to make sure that I've got the right nutrition, the fluids, if I need a change of clothes, that kind of thing. Because the weather down there at that time of year could be anything. It could be snowing, it could be 20 degrees C, it could be literally one or the other, or somewhere in between. 112 miles on the bike, and then we get onto the run. The run is a trail run, so it's all off-road. It's not in a loop or anything like that. It's all in one direction. You're going through great ravines, valleys, over hills, through rivers. It's crazy and it's fantastic. There's things out there on YouTube if you want to take a look at it. Patagon Man. It's amazing. And then the last 10K, with 10K to go, I meet up with Helen, and she gets to run the last 10 kilometers with me, which is going to be amazing. I'm really looking forward to that bit. And then as we cross the line, they have a bell hanging up over the road, and we get to ring the bell together to cross the finish line, and job done. It's going to be an amazing event. We're really looking forward to it. It's on the 1st of December. So we've got the rest of the summer to train for it, to publicize it. We're going to be setting up a Just Giving page. So that might even be live right now. I'm not sure. I think Helen's on with that right now. She's good at the technical stuff. I just provide the swimming and the cycling and bits like that.
You do the hard work.
Yeah, well, I would say
that, you know what it's like.
That's the hard work, is the technical stuff. Seriously. So yeah, it's going to be an amazing event. As I say, if you get the opportunity to have a look on YouTube at some point, look it up, Patagon Man. There's lots of videos out there, give you a good feel for it. And I think it's going to be great. It's a great opportunity to raise the profile for Mercy, and let's hope we can make it something really special.
Amazing. So having done similar extreme sports and knowing that this is your biggest challenge yet,
yeah,
probably have a fairly good idea as to what you think is going to be the hardest parts of it, and kind of I imagine there's points, well, probably multiple points, where you hit the wall, like the mental wall, where you have to push through. For this race, where do you think that's going to come? What do you think are going to be the really challenging bits? And there must be it must take a lot of mental stamina and a lot of like good sound psychological resistance. I don't know what the right terminology is, but to push through that. I've never had to push through that physical barrier. I don't think once in my entire life. So talk us through what that's like and how you keep going even though everything's against you.
That's a good question, because that is the big challenge, and that will come almost certainly partway into the run. Usually in an Ironman race, they do it's a marathon that they make into 4 10K loops, so you're going around in a big circle 4 times, so you get to see the same bits over and over again. You get to see your support team over and over again, and it's quite mentally quite easy to tick the laps off in that regard, and compartmentalize the race. This is different. This is a point-to-point race. So as we get out of the swim, we cycle 112 miles to a different location, 112 miles away. We then get onto the run, and we're going to run to a destination 26 miles away. So the mental challenge is going to be coming at some point during that run, because I won't get to see Helen or Max for 32 kilometers. I'll be out there by myself, my thoughts and God. So it's going to be up to me and God to get us through that. And there'll be some conversations, won't there, during that 32 kilometers, because that's where it'll become really, really hard. That's where exhaustion will set in, physically and mentally. That's where the training and years of experience of doing these things will hopefully help me to get to a point where I'm able to just keep going. And it really is one of the keys that I found is picking a point, and it might only be 100 meters away, but picking a point and saying, right, we're going to get to that point there, and then going again, and right, we're going to get to that point there. And that's a great analogy in life, because you know what, when times are really tough for a lot of us, you know what, let's get the morning out of the way. Let's just get to lunchtime. Let's just get to this afternoon. Let's get to dinner time, because sometimes that's all you can face. Just that little bit more. Don't think about the big, I've got a marathon in front of me. Just think about the next few steps. And before you know it, you know, you've done a kilometer, and your watch has just ticked over. And, right, I'm 10K into this now. We're okay. We're okay. Let's just keep going. And I think that's a great lesson in life in general. Just, you know what, God's got my back. We're all right. Just keep going. Just keep going. And you know what, that's my experience of pushing through when things have been really tough, when my back's been to the wall. Keep going. It's okay.
Amazing. That's really profound, Martyn. That's there's a lot to reflect on there. Are there any? I know that, you know, the subject of overwhelm and burnout is huge at the moment. There'll be lots of people. I'm sure some people even listening now. I know it's true for myself as well, that have been through those times where they do feel like they're in a mountain, and it just feels overwhelming. And it's really helpful to kind of hear practically how people have dealt with that. So again, as much as you feel comfortable, are there any examples where you've done that, where you've kind of we've been in a difficult situation, your back's up against the wall, and you've gone, I'm just going to get through the next however long? And what have you done? Like, what have been your markers? How have you kind of navigated yourself through those really, really tricky points?
Yeah, sure. Really, like I say, really, if we go back to in terms of being in business, it really, when things were at their worst, literally driving into work and praying while I'm on the way there and saying, right, God, come on, just get me into work. Let's do another morning. Let's get through the morning. Okay. And sometimes, you know, there are people that you don't want to have conversations with, because you know that there are certain people in your life that shouldn't be in your life. You need to get rid of them. And that's hard, because there are some people that will really, really bring you down. And for your own safety, you need to make sure that you get away from certain people. And that's hard.
Because I think that's one of the great skills in life. It's hard to recognize when actually you've got people in your sphere and in your world that actually they're not building you up, they're tearing you down.
How
to navigate those relationships is really hard. So have you got any sort of tips for people that might be in that position?
Yeah, well, joking aside, you can always sack them, but I don't recommend. That is a joke, by the way. Don't just go sacking people if you're a boss. But it's
you're listening, don't pay any attention. Okay.
But it is hard. But sometimes you have to recognize that certain relationships do need to come to an end, And whether that's having a really blunt conversation with somebody, or just, you know what, making sure that you know, speak to trusted people and speak to them about situations, and be honest. Am I at fault here because this happened? But don't dress it up. Don't paint it as though you're a victim. You've got to be honest and say, this is what happened. Is it me? And if it might well be you, it might be you that's got the wrong end of the stick, or you're at fault. But if there's repeat situations where you recognise, you know what, this has happened again. This has happened again. This thing's happening again. No, it's time to get away from certain people. You need to, okay, that's not good. I do need to do something about this. And if that means ending a friendship, then that's what that has to happen for your own well-being. And you know, that has happened in my life. I know it's happened in Helen's life, and I know that we're both better for it, because you know, you are ultimately protecting yourself, but you know what, their problems can manifest themselves into you as well, and that's dangerous territory. Then, you know, you don't want to be taken on board their behaviors, their problems. That they're not your problems to have. So you can't own somebody else's problem. You have to protect yourself.
I don't know if you'll have the answer to this. It feels like a slightly unfair question to put to you, and I might actually put it to, we've got some pastors coming up later on today, but I think one of the things that's tricky is when you play pastoral roles and you are in a position where you are looking out for other people, you can feel a sense of obligation. And I think in that kind of context, do you have any thoughts as to how you manage those relationships, or how you manage your own expectations about what you should be doing? Because I think it's part of the reason why I think this is actually quite a big problem within the church, because there is a sense of love thy neighbor and love your enemies. There's a sense of we should put up with bad behavior because we've got to rise above it, because that's the Christian thing to do, but it's also incredibly unhealthy thing to do. So have you had to navigate that tension, and how have you kind of
that's a good question, because we have, and I do remember in the past when we've had situations like that. Helen and I have both prayed over the house before and after we've had certain people in the house, because for our own protection. And certainly I would recommend that for anybody who's maybe inviting people into their homes, whether it's in a life group setting or something similar, whereby you know that person is going to bring something into the house that you're not happy about. You've got to protect yourself. So, you know, make sure you do that before and after. It's absolutely key part of being a leader, I think, because you do need to, well, protection, but refresh yourselves as well. Make sure that you are. So if that means that you have to go to somebody else and say, look, this is happening, then you know, share with one of the leaders. You have to, obviously, we have to be careful. We have to respect people's confidence, but certainly you have to make sure that you're protected, and your family are protected as well. You can't take somebody else's burden. It's not yours to own. Yeah.
Thanks, Martyn. I know that's a slight tangent. You probably didn't expect to go there.
Sure.
I think it's one of those issues that actually the whole issue of boundaries and how you set clear boundaries is huge, especially within the church. And actually, I think it can really contribute towards issues, because we don't feel in control. So I really appreciate you going there and talking that through. While we're into the last few minutes, Martyn, so before we wrap up, I'd love to give the last word to you. If there's anything else that you had hoped to say or had thought about saying when you were kind of preparing for today that you haven't had a chance to say yet.
Yeah, look, it's been great speaking to you guys. I really appreciate this opportunity. You know, I've never done anything like this before, so it's been great to be able to chat with you, and hopefully, you know, we can again raise this awareness for Mercy, for men's mental health, and hopefully throughout the summer we can do a few videos and engage with guys, and hopefully, you know, raise awareness, raise some funds as we train towards going out there to Chile later in the year. I think we've covered most things. Yeah.
Amazing. Thanks, Martyn. Paul, was there anything you wanted to say?
I just, again, appreciate your time and what you've brought and just being so open. It's these frank conversations, isn't it, that open up questions as well on the chat and things for us to keep talking through. Again, you've brought up another theme today that is just how valuable the support of wives and the women in our lives are as well. Big shout out to the women.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally agree. I mean, just one other thing before we go. I think that the media possibly have a lot to play in this, but you know, as Christian guys, I think that the world might see us as being a little bit submissive, a bit pushovers. And we're not, are we? Let's be honest. We're not. I'm looking at you guys. You're not pushovers. I'm not a pushover. But the media portray the Christian guy as being this weak, feeble, and we're not. You know, let's get out of that image altogether. We are not. You know, guys, come on. You know, we're in a battle here, and you know, we know where the victory is. So you know, let's not be having any of that. And I think that that's partly all wrapped up in this determination thing and Patagon man thing. You know, it's not about me blowing my own trumpet saying, look at me, I'm good. It's about saying, you know what, I've got a great God and he's given me a great ability. And as guys, we're not weak. We are great, strong Christian guys. And, you know, let's celebrate that.
Yeah. Amazing. Martyn, thank you so much for your time today. We wish you all the best as you prepare and as you train. We'll obviously be sharing out links as soon as Helen's finished the Just Giving page, which she might have already done, or she might be waiting on something from me for all I know. We will be sharing that far and wide because we're 100% in this with you. You're not just doing it for us; like we are with you in this journey.
Yes, great.
We look forward to journeying it with you.
Excellent.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been great.
Take care, Martyn.
Enjoy your training.
Thank you. Good night. Bye.